So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how to find work. And so obviously on the big welcome here is before I kind of get into the meat of the presentation, I just want to say that the next few ones that are coming up are actually forming an incredible three-legged stool. As far as I wish somebody had told me this when I got out of college. I'm going to talk about getting a job. The next one's going to talk about how to manage your money. And then the next one after that is going to talk about volunteering and philanthropy. And I cannot think of a better way to establish an incredible foundation as you're just beginning your career than these next ones coming up. And so I highly encourage you guys to come to all of those because it's pretty amazing. So, you know, heads up on that, just thrilling to have these. So I'm making an assumption here that you already know what it is that you want to do. So when you're popping an application in, you already have a sense of who the company is. And so except for one slide at the very end, I'm not going to really focus on what do you want to do, where do you want to be when you grow up. But I did have one thought I want to put in at the very end. And I want to emphasize the fact that you probably have heard everything I'm going to tell you today. And you probably heard it, you know, if you were in the Greek system or you went to a career fair or a workshop at college, you know, a lot of that, you're going to say, okay, I know that already. But what I'm going to try and give you the point of view is from the other side of the desk. I have hired a lot of people in my career. And so my hope is to give you some tips on what helps you stand out. My daughter just graduated from UC Santa Cruz in June. And so I put this together and then I went through it with her to make sure that I was hitting all the right notes. And she was really helpful. So it's had her input as well. And the one thing she wanted to emphasize, and I totally agree with her, this is not a digital process. So yeah, you know, you may use email or something to initiate a contact, but the truth is looking for work, it's very conversational. There's writing involved. It's a very person-to-person type of process. And it may push you a little out of your comfort zone. So that's what I'm going to kind of go through when we talk about today, how important that piece is. So a little bit about me, just so I can establish some street cred with you. As Jordan said in the intro, I've been working my way up through my career. And was CEO of a medical billing company, sort of the pinnacle of that. I've written some books, one published, you know, 3 not. So I just absolutely love to write. Very proud father. Just really fun to watch your little kid at 5 suddenly go through 4 years of college and help her edit her papers. It was really fun. And if it involves a chop saw and a hammer, I'm very happy. You will find me out building something around this house all the time. So while I know those last 3 don't necessarily go to my credibility on how to help you find a job, I have found so far in my career, being able to build a deck and be creative and solve problems can definitely help you when you hit some weird thing that happens in the office. So let's jump right in. So, and again, if you have any questions, chat them in, unmute yourself and throw it in there. Got no problem stopping along the way. So obviously the very first thing you need to do is figure out, okay, if I'm going to get a job, I got to find them. So how do you do that? Well, networking is huge, and networking is not sending an email. Networking is obviously about who do you know, and it would be shocking when you look at it, how many people you probably already know through friends, through parents, etc., to say, hey, I'm really interested. Is there a way that, you know, do you know somebody that might be working in a company that you're interested in, or maybe in a field that you'd like to know more about? So that's the first place. The second is almost every university's got a very strong alumni association. A lot of them probably already have a job center. Use that. That's another great source of leads. And then you're going to hear this term a couple of times today. It's called a small ask. And that is that if you find an alum and say they're at a company or they're working on a job in a field that you're interested in, make a small ask. Hey, could I have 5 minutes of your time to ask a question? Or, hey, do you have a connection in here on somebody that I can speak with? Small asks are easy, even when people are busy. And it could be a very potent part of finding work. I'm sure you've heard of informational interviews, where you get together and you say, look, can we have a cup of coffee and can I just ask you questions about either your company or your job or how you progressed to get to the position that you're in? Here's what's so potent of these is you have that informational interview and all of a sudden, as you're establishing yourself and you have rapport with this person, that bell might go off in their head of saying, wow, I really like this person and I wanted to see if we can maybe find him or her a position. So informational interviewing is very, very potent. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't think about when they're looking for work, but it's a very common part of the marketing department of any company, and that's engaging with social media content. And here's what I mean by that. Whatever you feel you want to do, I want to go into accountancy or I want to be in product marketing. I guarantee you on LinkedIn and on Facebook, there is a group dedicated to that topic. You want to jump in, look at the thread, and make comments on it. Drop a link, answer a question, post something on your own. And what happens is that as you do that, you become a content expert and you never know who's reading that lead. So you're interested in marketing and you're making marketing comments on a thread. And one of the people who's participating is the director of marketing at company X, who may pop you a private message that says, can we talk? And so this is very common when you're a company. But a lot of people don't realize that this could be very, very potent, especially when you're interviewing. And then if you go in for a job, you say, oh yeah, for the last 3 months, I've been engaging in social media and this thread, commenting here and there. And suddenly now you're standing out from all the other applicants. So I highly recommend you do that. And this is another piece that I recommend, which is reaching out to content creators and influencers. I'll give you a brief example. When we were working on Garbageman's guide, and it's like, how do we let the world know we've written this book and we've got all this great content? I reached out to a woman named Amy Morin, and Amy had just written a blog called 13 Things Mentally Strong People Do. And I thought, okay. So I said, we wrote this book, and what do you think? She ended up writing a blog entry on us, and 13 Things went viral. And then she wrote a book on it, and the book was an international bestseller. And our book sales popped after that. So that's an example of reaching out, and you got nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Because again, these people might find there's a place that they could send you, or they can make a connection for you. LinkedIn, another piece that's really important, and I know you're going to have a talk on your LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to briefly touch on it. But the last piece I'd say here is use the filters. Jobs, search, all filters. And it's amazing how you can hone in on what you're looking for. Same thing, use the filters on a company's direct page. Company people, and you can start locating people inside a firm, second or third connection that may get you to have some sort of connection. And obviously, this one, job boards and career fairs. Join every job board you can and go to every career fair you can, because those are great job leads. Oops. Oh, good grief. Did I not share my screen? Well, that was embarrassing. Hang on just a sec. Well, it was a really good slide, folks. Hold on a sec. Thank you, Sally, for that. And I want to share this one. Okay, can you guys see the screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say that's what that looked like, just so you can see the pretty graphic. That's all that matters. All right, great. So now let's move on there. So I want to touch briefly on the LinkedIn profile. So here are just some key things I strongly recommend on your profile. So number one is your photo. Okay, this is not the time to, take a photo with you holding a beer, right? It's obvious. So I would recommend, blank background. If you can, I bought a $5 light at Home Depot, put it behind and shine it on the wall so there's maybe a little bit of a glow. No selfie, give your camera to a friend and just put on something that looks professional, if you will, and just, you know, a nice smile. What I'm not keen on this one is part of the head's cut off. So think about you in a circle. So again, you just want to present a professional image. So make sure that you just have a nice looking professional photo to go with it. The next piece I'd say is the background photo. That's this guy up here. So Bruce here decided that I want to put a picture of AT&T Park up. That's great, except Bruce is in HR. And while this may say something, this guy obviously loves baseball. I don't know. I would think maybe you would want a picture that's maybe a little bit more aligned with what you're going for. And the reason I'm saying that is really this third piece here, which is the headline. Now, a lot of people will just put senior recruiter at SHPO and they'll stop there. And that's certainly an option once you have a job. But this is about standing out, right? It's about being creative. So what you're going to start to see more people do is the headline would be CEO, COO, operations executive, organizational transformation. This is free-form text, folks. So this may be a place where you put positions that you want to have, or 2 or 3 things that you think you're really good at. Or look what he did. I spark joy in recruiting and enable candidates to be successful. Your potential employer is going to check your LinkedIn account. And what you want to do is stand out as much as possible by not playing by the rules. And one of them is use this and be a little creative in it. And that also goes, and I actually don't even have this on my own LinkedIn account, and that's the summary. This is huge because it gives you a chance to tell something about yourself that the plain old boring, I went to school here and I had these jobs, resume stuff cannot get across. That's 2-dimensional data. This is a chance to make yourself 3D in front of a potential employer. And I would just Google LinkedIn summary and just look at what people have done. You're all smart. You'll get it right away. But a lot of them will start off with a 1-sentence grabber. You know, I transform companies. I'm passionate about X. And then they'll say something really unique about themselves. And this is what could grab a potential employer or the HR department, because it gives you a chance, especially when you don't have the benefit of experience, to be able to get something across very quickly before they look at your very first piece of your resume below. So I highly, highly recommend that you do that. All right. So here's the next piece I'm going to talk about since we're on social media, and that's Facebook. So I found this funny little graphic, and this is truer than a lot of us probably are going to want to admit. And this is what's kind of funky. And I'm using Facebook more as a placeholder for any other social media account other than LinkedIn, you know, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is that you're posting your personal, more casual stuff about your life. All right. I strongly recommend you set the page to private, and I strongly recommend that you engage, but you be smart about it. Okay. Whether we like it or not, more than likely a prospective employer is going to check you all out on social media, including, and I did this every time I was ready to hire, I'd always go search them on Facebook. And this isn't about trying to censor you. Okay. This is about a balance between your personal and your professional life. Everybody has the right to talk about your political, your economic, your equity issues, but at the same time, you're marketing yourself. And so you have to be careful that at this critical stage, you know, there are companies, whether we like it or not, that may have a bias. And so if you're out there very public and very social, and you're trying to get to a certain employer, depending on what you're doing, you're trying to show responsibility and leadership. And that may reflect beautifully in your social media posts, but we all know what bad social media posts look like too. So just, you know, engage, but just be smart about it as you're looking to try and land a new position. All right. So you figured out Now you found the leads. Now it's time to tell them all about you, generally by filling out the online form and sending in your resume. And the first thing I want to emphasize is the cover letter. And here's the first one. Always include one. I cannot tell you, as a hiring manager, how many times I get a resume without a cover letter. And a cover letter, if you want to really set yourself apart from the rest of the crowd, this is one way to do it. Now, one thing you might want to look at is following the tone of the ad. Some ads are very formal in their wording, and some ads are, you know, we are the place with the fire pole and the free vending machine, and we just want to have a great time at work and get your job done. Your tone of your cover letter should sort of pick up the tone, whether it's casual or formal, of the ad. Now, the next piece I think that's really important is a lot of times when you go and apply for a job, they'll have you fill out an online form. There may be a field for cover letter and a field to upload the resume. And here's your LinkedIn address. Here's my view. Even though I've copied and pasted the cover letter in, I still attach the cover letter as page 1 of the resume PDF, because a lot of times when it starts circulating, I wouldn't send people or I wouldn't send my staff the form that was filled out. I just circulate the PDF of the resume. Well, you want that cover letter to be seen by everybody in the organization, especially since you'll probably interview with 3 or 4 people. So I strongly recommend that. And then I'm going to give you a piece of advice here that's not just about this. This is about for the rest of your career. Guys, don't send the source file. Send the PDF. Here's why. You send them a Word file, and you've used some font that nobody's ever seen before, and they get the Word file and they open it up, and it's substituted Arial for whatever nice font you downloaded from Adobe. It looks weird. They may not have the same version. Boom. You look like a mess. That's what a PDF does. It's a snapshot of the output. Never, ever, ever send the original file unless you're collaborating with somebody on a project. So that's the other piece of advice I would give. And then leverage your format. So I dummied one up here for you. So, you know, opening line, I'm thrilled to apply for position X. Then comes a short paragraph. Why am I perfect for this job? You hit your top 1 or 2 skills that you think will absolutely ring their bell. Then I just thought, you know, it'd be cool. Read through and pick out the key verbs. All right. Lead, enhance, monitor. And then you would say, well, these verbs that you used, those are the words of a leader, and people say that's who I am. So that way they know you read the ad and that you're putting extra effort in. Again, makes you stand out from other people that just send a resume in and they're mum on everything else. And then if there's something that you think that comes sort of personally that you want to bring to their attention, in this case, I put in, you know, this job is for a manager at an elder care facility. And so you throw in an anecdote that would say, this is why, on a personal note, I really fit this job description well. And then you can use the same closing paragraph. Like if you're doing marketing, have a closing paragraph that emphasizes brand loyalty. If you are doing like operations, you can say, I'm really good at getting things done. And so you can literally grab and have these formats and then just plug stuff in, and you can create a cover letter without having to write one from scratch every single time. Is this making sense? Is this resonating for people? Awesome. Okay, so now comes the resume, all right? And I'm gonna tell you there are 5 million formats for resumes, and everyone's right and everyone is wrong. I'm not gonna tell you what I think the best resume format is, but I am gonna hit a couple of highlights. So first of all, should you add a photo? So in the same vein that I talked about a moment ago about, you know, social media, and yeah, you know, you kind of have to maybe throttle some things back. Whether we like it or not, human beings have bias. It just is. I mean, we're having a national struggle over that right now. You put a picture on your resume and there's an immediate human bias. And I struggled with that because obviously the way I manage is I don't care who you are, what your background is, you're being hired for a job. Do you fit the culture? And let's just get to work. But there are hiring managers that will make decisions about whether they will or will not give you an interview based on your gender, your look, your weight, your ethnicity. And I don't like it, but it's also part of the reality. So my recommendation, don't add a photo. Abby and I both felt very strongly about this when we went through this presentation, except if you're applying for something like, I want to be the communications director. Okay, maybe a photo does make sense there because you're going to be the public face of the company. But I would recommend, this is all about stacking the odds in your favor. So I would recommend against it for now. This is a piece I would strongly recommend. Again, if you want to stand out and you don't have the experience that somebody who's been working for 5 or 10 years has, make sure you have a personal website set up that tells more about who you are and may have more additional information that can help a prospective employer. So how do you deal with that lack of experience thing? Well, here's a possibility. Okay, on the left is a traditional resume. So I just grabbed page 1 of mine. No more than 2 pages, by the way. Golden rule. But it's traditional. So on the top, my key areas that I do well in: business plan dev, equity financing, startup execution. The next 6 bullets down here are focused on my key skills: powerful communicator, excellent writer, incredibly strong work ethic. So if this is all they get, because believe me, when I'm looking at 200 resumes from Indeed, they don't get a lot of time on each one, okay? Maybe you get the top part in a scan. So you really want to hammer on this, and I don't put an objective down. What's the objective? Please hire me. I'm good at what I do. So I don't put an objective. Now, 10 other people doing a resume would feel different. That's why every format's right and every format's wrong. And there is no right or wrong answer. It's what presents you in the strongest light. And then I have a 1-sentence description of what I did. Okay. If I am director of product management and I'm a hiring manager, I already know what that job is. I don't need somebody to explain to me in a paragraph that I did this and I did this and I did this. What I want to get across, what you want to get across, is what you accomplished in that position. So today's resume I recommend is a 1-sentence description of your job, and your bullets are all about, here is how I kicked butt and took names, folks. I saved this much money. We got this many more customers. We broke through these problems, so that it's all about what you can do for the company. It's about the results you get, because you are not like all the other hundreds of resumes that they got in. So what do you do if you don't have some of that experience? So one of the things you do is, this is a sample that I downloaded. Now this one has a picture. Again, I recommend you don't put it in. But in order to take up some space and still have a full page, this person put all their contact information in, which I thought was a pretty good idea. And then on the right, using some sort of more graphic orientation, there's only 2 years of work experience here if you look at it, but was broken into potentially 4 different jobs, a nice emphasis on education, and I loved this bottom piece. Not only these are my skills, but a little meter that showed me what my strongest ones are, but you mix it up so you're not going from strongest and then there's like a little baby meter in the bottom. This is a great approach if you don't have the experience yet. But if I saw a resume like that as a hiring manager, I would stop and give this a read, because you've put the time in to present what you do have very professionally. So I was very impressed with this format. And Brooklyn had a great comment there. Canva, if I'm pronouncing that right, is a great website with tons of templates. So yeah, absolutely. Don't do it from scratch. A lot of it is take it and run with one that works really well for you. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so where are we? Got the cover letter, got the resume, we got the interview. Okay, so here are a couple tips for you as a hiring manager that made an impression on me to help you stand out. Number 1, research. Okay. Read the company website. Don't skim it, read it. Learn what you can, Google it. Figure out a couple of things to put in your mind so that when you're talking to them, they know you've done some homework. Again, what does it show them? I'm an employee that when you hire me, I'm going the extra mile. Then what you can do, this is Abby held this up when we were going through this. When she goes into an interview, she writes down, what are the key strengths I think would be really, really important to emphasize in this job? Okay, including her elevator pitch. I'm really good at herding cats. So she's got her pitch ready to walk into the interview. She's got three of her biggest weaknesses because she knows she's going to be asked for that. And folks, as a hiring manager, when I ask you what your greatest weakness is, please don't say, oh, I work too hard. Okay, that's a strength turned into a weakness. And I'm going to see right through that. And you just lost 5 points. Okay, your greatest weakness is your weakness because we all have them. Own them, love them, celebrate them. You know, that's where you get a couple of extra aliens out of it because a hiring manager wants to know who you are. And the best way to do that is be honest, be yourself. So, you know, I get flustered. I don't, you know, I'm very self-critical. I could buy that. I've been there. So, you know, she puts those down. She puts buzzwords that she thinks would be very effective for this particular position. And then she says, you know what? You can do this. So she always writes at least one positive attribute to keep in her mind. And she writes this down and has it in front of her. So if you're doing a Zoom interview, like I said with the picture, have a blank wall behind you. So there's absolutely no distractions. It's just you in the picture and they can't focus on anything else. Assume a business casual dress code. It doesn't hurt to ask, but don't show up in a t-shirt. And if it's IBM and then wear a tie, make sure you're in your business suit. So just try and figure out, if you can, what the dress code is. Here's the golden rule, folks. You can always overdress, but underdressing is a bad thing. So, you know, as I said, you can always take the tie off, but you can't put one on if you didn't bring it with you. And then here's one other key thing, especially in Zoom. Don't obviously hold your phone. Use a laptop or a phone stand, but make sure it's straight. You know what it's like 45 minutes looking up somebody's nose? It doesn't help you. So make sure I spent they're very inexpensive, but you just get a stand that's at eye level. So you're looking straight on. And laptops, if you put them low and you flip the cover back, you're looking straight up at somebody. This is all about making sure you put yourself in the strongest stead. And then if you're in person, obviously make sure you've got good posture, etc. Now, here's the one thing I'd throw in here. When you're in this interview, all right, it's really easy to discount yourself. I mean, where's the power position? It's on the other side of the table. You want them to hire you, and you're trying to make the best impression you can to make that happen, all right? And so it's really easy to second guess yourself, to minimize what you know. You know what? This is about owning your power. It's about who you are and what you've accomplished. And it doesn't matter that you haven't had 10 years. And I'm going to get into this in a second. You'd be shocked at how much you already know. So own that, guys. Yeah, that you're asking something for them, but you're also trying them on to see if they're a fit for you. Don't forget that. There is power on both ends of the table, and they need you. They need your skill set. They need your smarts. They need your energy. They need your creativity. Never, ever lose that, no matter how much you want that job. So a couple other tips. Please keep your answers short. There is a tendency today to ask, so what do you think of X? Don't give them a 5-minute answer. Don't go on where a person can't get into a conversation. An interview is a conversation. It's a dialogue. So ask questions. Have a notepad and a pen handy. It doesn't matter if you look down and take notes. That tells me, wow, they're engaged. They're interested. Like I said, be honest and show them who you are, and never forget it's a two-way conversation. All right? Any questions? All right, let's keep rolling. So the interview's done. Okay, here's something that will make you stand out because I never, ever got these except once in a while. You want to rocket to the front of the pack? You want to make sure you get noticed after the interview? Send a thank you note. Best thank you notes are the ones that are written. Email is good, text, never. Okay. And what you want to emphasize, first of all, no more than 2 days after the interview. If you want to never worry about it, write in and send it off in the mail as soon as you finish the interview, as quickly as you can. But make sure it's personalized. Highlight the key points of the discussion. If bring out 1 or 2 of your top skills that you want to emphasize. And if you made a connection, you guys talked about windsurfing or whatever, emphasize that so that you're emphasizing that personal connection that you made with them. I think that's really important. Again, it helps you stand out. And then this is what Abby uses. This is her Google sheet that she tracks where she's at. So she lists the job, the date, what the position is, how did she apply, how did she find it, and then she'll track either the results or where she's at. You know what this is? It's your checklist. A week after the interview, if you haven't heard, she looks at this and says, boom, I got to reach out again. Maybe a quick email that says, I really loved our interview. Any progress, anything I can do for you? Maybe there's a quick ask in there that wouldn't be taxing on the person, but it might, again, rocket them in the front because front brain means you're standing out against the rest of the pack that sends it in, has an interview, doesn't send a thank you note, and sits on the sideline saying, I hope I get it. This is all about you going to get it. Okay? So I would say on this, keep a list, small asks, check it in, whatever's on the front brain, it's there. So this was a question Sally told me somebody had actually chatted in. Okay, great. I'm going for an interview. I understand everything you said, Stephen, but how in the world am I supposed to talk to somebody I don't know? So we chatted a little bit, and this is what we came up with. And this goes back to what I said before. You are on equal footing. It doesn't matter that you need a job from them. They need you. So walk in, considering yourself on equal footing, and remind yourself before the interview of what you know. And that is not about how many jobs are on your resume. That is about if you just finished 4 years of college, you know how much of a push-up that is? How many midnights you had finishing a paper? How many times you had to overcome something that you've never even heard of before, but you took the class and you mastered it and walked out with an A or a B? Or about that sporting event you were in where you thought you were going to lose, but you pulled it out at the last minute, or you lost and got crushed because you thought that you were prepared, but you weren't. These are all things I think that are so important to remind yourself about. And remember this, guys, you wouldn't have had the interview, or either it's informational or regular interview, if they weren't already interested in you. So own that, and then look for common ground and interests that you share. And don't feel like you have to rush to answer a question. So a lot of times I'll answer something and I'll start stumbling. I'm like, oh my gosh, that so did not come out the way I wanted. And then you're like, you know what? With COVID, I'm like home and I don't talk to anybody except my dog and my stuffed animals. So I'm out of practice. Let me try that again. Guess what? You just told them you're human. Like I fit in your culture, folks, because I'm not walking in here like with some superhero shield and I never make a mistake. You know what? Captain America makes a lot of mistakes. So at the end of the day, don't rush into it. And if you do, so what? Own it, backtrack, and do it again. That is rooted in confidence. And that's all you need to know about how to talk to somebody you don't know. Own yourself, because you've got so much that you could bring to the table. Just keep that in sight. So as we kind of start to wrap up here, how do you stand out? Okay, how do I stand out if I don't have 10 years of work experience? All right. I guarantee you every one of you has demonstrated leadership. I tutored, I volunteered. All right. That'll make you stand out. Bring that out in an interview. I guarantee you, you've had incredible results in your life. I did this project. It was impossible, but yeah, it was brilliant by the time we were done with it and I led it. Or I walked into this class and I couldn't do calculus if I tried and I got a C plus. And I'm more proud of that C plus than 9/10 of the A's that I got because it was so difficult. All right. Talk about your tenacity. There was some obstacle that was impossible for me to overcome. And you know what? I did. Here's how. Or I had this challenge that seemed so much bigger than life, and I made it to the other side of that 50-foot wall. I guarantee you, every one of you has absolute demonstrated creativity. Some work product that you cranked out, whether it was in school or outside of it, that was extraordinary. It's the same work product you'll create for them. Or you got some recognition in a place that you never thought that you would. Talk about your capabilities. The time that someone took a chance on you when you were utterly unqualified for them to do so. And they looked at you, what it was done, and said, boy, was that a smart thing that I did, taking my chance on you. Or flip it around. I guarantee you, every one of you has taken a risk at some point that you thought, I shouldn't do this, but you did, and guess what? It was successful or it was a spectacular failure. So what if it was a failure? Love it. Because we all have faults, but you learn lessons from it. And out of risk, no reward. So these are little places that you could stand out as you go through, your interview. So this is sort of my last slide here that, so I've taken you through the whole path, right? Resume, cover letter, post-interview, how to address if you don't have all the experience that someone with 10 years more has for you. So what? You're fabulous with what you're bringing to the table already. But if I could look back and have a conversation with my 22-year-old self standing there with my degree in one hand and my what the heck am I going to do with my life in the other, I would actually tell myself this. So there are 4 paths that I see that you can go through with your career, okay? You can stick with one area and one industry. I want to stay in finance in the semiconductor industry. And I'm going to start out as an AP specialist, and someday I'm going to be CFO. Now, the next piece you could say is I just love finance. That's all I want to do for all my days. I'm going to start in the semiconductor business, and I'm going to go into solid waste or go into, the medical industry. The third career path you might have is, well, I'm going to start in finance, and I'm going to do that for X amount of time. Then I'm going to jump over to marketing. But I'm only going to do that in the semiconductor industry. And then here's the fourth path. And that is I'm going to start in finance and I'm going to do it in semiconductors. Then I'm going to jump to marketing and I'm going to do it in the toy industry. And this is me. This is how my career has progressed. So here are the pros and cons, guys. On the far left, you will be very attractive to companies if you stay in one industry and you get deep and real with it. You are the finance king in the food industry. All right? Undisputed champion. So this is one area that goes well. So this is very, very attractive if you want to hire, say you want to be COO someday, or excuse me, CFO. I'm seeing somebody right now, and this is what she's done. Incredible job as CFO of a huge food processing company, and she's done that by staying in the same industry and in finance for most of her career. All right, so she's got extraordinary depth in the industry. It'll hurt you if you decide after 15, 20 years, oh, you know what, I really want to go into marketing. Well, guess what? Your whole resume is built around finance. Now, at the other end, where I'm at, can be equally as positive and negative. I've got breadth. I've experienced multiple industries and I've done every job in a company. That's brilliant to qualify you for like a CEO or a COO position. But in a market like today, where people want in this industry with this many years experience in this job, there's a lot of people doing that. So again, pros and cons. So what am I saying in this slide? All I'm recommending is if you can, at this early stage of your career, think 10, 20, 30 years ahead. And try and think if you're headed to the executive office, then going with multiple positions helps. If you want to stay in one field, maybe getting depth of industry is helpful as well. So I would just wrap up by just saying, finding a job is a job. It takes a lot of time. It's going to have ups and downs. Rejection is part of it. It's all about a thick skin. And guys, you've been through this already when you applied for college. This is just another level of it. And it's all about patience and time and staying in touch with your capabilities. There you go. I hope I didn't go too long, but let me open it up. Questions, unmute yourself. Is there anything I can answer?
I wrote a question somewhere. I need to go back and find it. Someone else has questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, anybody. So actually, Sally chatted one and that was good. How do you follow up if you don't know where to follow up? You know, there's only so far you can get. If you're applying to a huge, you know, an Intel or a Nike, you know, you have the interview, always ask for the business card or the contact information if it's over Zoom. And so I would recommend just making sure you follow up on that. In terms of getting leads in, if you haven't even had the interview, obviously it's going to be a little bit more difficult. That's where you start working your network to say, hey, do you know anybody on the inside that might be able to get me to that person?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You bet.
I have a question. So on a lot of job applications that I've seen recently, they kind of have a line and it's like, what salary would be ideal or something like that. And that's always a really hard question that me and my friends don't really know how to answer.
Yeah, boy, that's a tough one. So I would say pick up the cues sometimes from what you see. Sometimes the ad will list the salary. So I would reflect that back. I'm not saying go for the lowest number and don't go for the highest number, go for mid, okay? Or put a range in yourself. That would be one way. Another way is I would just put negotiable and postpone the conversation. I actually liked it when people did that because that told me they've got enough confidence in themselves that they're waiting until we have the interview in order to negotiate and close the deal. I don't have any problem seeing that at all. I'll tell you what I did have a problem with. Getting a resume from somebody, and people literally, I'm not kidding, put this on their resume saying, as the requested salary range, $180,000, and they're applying for an entry-level marketing position. So that would be to me a big no. So I would say if it's known, go for mid-level, but put a range in that reflects appropriately in there. Stay away from the low and the high, but give a good spread, or just sidestep it all together and say negotiable and push the salary conversation to the very end. Because that's not going to come up until after you pass the interviews and how impressive you are and then how nervous they are. I better make you a doggone good offer because I don't want to lose you. So I would kick the can down the road on that one. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
I had a quick question.
Please.
So in terms of not just tailoring your cover letter for the specific job that you're applying for, but in potentially tailoring your resume a bit.
Yeah.
Or there could be jobs that you have listed on there that they are relevant to your career or what it is that you're going for.
Yeah.
But how do you kind of weed out the ones that you do feel are important, but they might be hurting your chances at that specific job?
So if I'm understanding, you're asking, should you have different versions of your resume?
Or like, I guess it's a little unclear of a question. What are things that jump out as like information that does not need to be on a resume in terms of experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've got like 6 or 7 different versions of my resume in folders that says, C-level or CEO, COO, operations executive. So what I've done is I've got my core resume and then I've rearranged everything. So first of all, Jordan, I don't think you leave anything out.
Okay.
Now, if you're applying for a job as a marketing person and you've got a ton of experience as a veterinarian, I wouldn't go into a lot of details about how you help dogs and cats. I would go into how did I market my veterinary practice so that it emphasizes that. So that's the part of the reworking of the resume, is that you say, if I want a resume that's emphasizing marketing, I'm going to take a look at all of my experience. I'm going to rewrite the one-liner to emphasize marketing. And then my bullets are going to be all about what I accomplished on a marketing perspective in this particular job. And then if I looked at that same resume and it were operations oriented or finance oriented, then the bullets would be about how much money you saved by reorganizing the supply cabinet, which resulted in a 10% reduction in supplies, as opposed to I'm the one that did the Facebook campaign and bought our first Facebook ads, which increased new customers by 5%. So I would say all your experience is valid. Just tweak the results bullets based on the kind of resume that you're creating. And that way, every scrap of experience that you have is absolutely relevant and used, especially at this stage where you don't have the benefit of work experience yet.
Awesome. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, totally.
Good. Any other questions? Yeah, boy, someone just chatted in a question. Any good or memorable applicants or interviews that stand out in all my years that I've been interviewing? I'd say a couple. First of all, the people that have come in and have made an effort to understand the business. It's really, here's a great question. You should have the answer to this with everyone. If I asked you in an interview, so if I hired you today and you were having coffee with your friends, I just got hired at company X, and they asked, well, what does the company do? What would you say? Do you know how many people, and then they're thinking of the name, Routeware. It has really good routing stuff. Boom. I know right away you didn't do any research at all. What stands out to me are people that would come to the interview and they would, from reading the website and clearly looking at some of the press releases, et cetera, they got it wrong a bunch of times. And I didn't care if they didn't understand the company. What I loved is the fact that they made the effort to try and encapsulate what they thought we did. You automatically move to the front of the pack there. That's one of the ways that you stand out. So that's always memorable. And I think for me, it's people that come in that are confident. I'm not thinking of any one specific one, but there's a line between being confident and being cocky. And I've had interviews where people come in and they're just like, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I get that, but I don't want to hire that. I want to hire the talent that comes with it, not the attitude, if you will. But people that have come in and they're like, boy, I've done this stuff and this was hard and this was great and I accomplished this. And there's sort of that quiet confidence. That's very, very memorable. But I can tell you, we don't have enough time here. The real answer to the question are the ones that just went south. The ones that I remember, the ones that were just, it's like you think to yourself, who says that in an interview? You know, where they're overly talking about their personal stuff. You know, they're overly talking and we get 15 minutes about the dog. It's like, I get it. And I'm thrilled that you like your pet, but we're here to talk about your professional qualifications. Or just, you know, folks that just come in and they're unprepared and they haven't got their own resume enough down to those bullets and those elevator pitches. And you think, you know what, if they're that disorganized for an interview, they're going to be that disorganized when I hand them their first project. So it's all about taking what you hear and moving on. So that was a great question. So just own what you have and walk in with that quiet confidence of knowing I'm going to nail this. I got this. And just keep yourself on even keel with the person across the table from you.
Are there any other questions? No. Stephen, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really good information.
Thanks. I hope that wasn't too long. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of slides.
Really good.
Thank
So
you.
good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And next week, we have Kim Rosenberg, who, as Stephen had mentioned, is going to talk to us about money. And I can speak, I will join Stephen in saying, boy, if I knew what she's going to tell us when I was your age, it would be awesome. So she's going to talk to us about getting your money together in your 20s, your financial musts for your 20s that are really, 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 I can't even emphasize really enough, really going to benefit you in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, so that you don't have to worry about things. Get it done now. And it's going to be really good. So thank you so much for attending today. And please help us in sharing this series and this information with your friends. We can only get to so many people, but with the help of you helping us share the information, we just get to that many more people who we can help out. So anyway, that's it. Thanks again, Stephen.
You
And
bet.
yeah, and thanks for all your great questions, you guys.
Thanks, everybody. That was great.
Thank you. I've already gotten messages from people saying they already feel more confident about the
Excellent.
process. So thank you so much.
You bet. Take care.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.